Kellen Moore, not wasting a ton of time getting that staff put into place. And it's very, very obvious what Kellen Moore's strategy is right from the start. Because we're seeing these hires being reported, and there's a common theme. He's got Scott Tolzien coming in, presumably to coach quarterbacks. He was quarterbacks coach with Kellen Moore in Dallas and has been in the NFL as a player or coach since 2011. But he's presumably coming in to coach quarterbacks under Kellen Moore. TJ Paganetti. He's a guy that we don't have a position for yet, but he's been the Eagles' offensive line coach assistant since 2017, been with that organization more than a decade on the offensive line side of things with the run game. He's going to join Kellen Moore in New Orleans. Joel Thomas, who, if that name sounds familiar, it should, was with the Saints as a running backs coach from 2015 to 2023. He's coming back to New Orleans to work with Kellen Moore. The first two guys I mentioned, Tolzien and Paganetti, have previous relationships with Kellen Moore. Thomas, previous relationships with Alvin Kamara and the Saints running back room. But the more important tie that all these guys have is their offensive coaches. Very clearly, Kellen Moore took that job and goes, okay, before I try to build this house, I'm going to make sure that my current situation is stable. And by that, I mean his offense. The offense is his corner of the store. The offense is his room, okay? So he's going to make sure that everything is in place on the offense, and then he will go select his defensive coordinator and work with that defensive coordinator who's going to have control of that side of the football to fill out the rest of that staff. That much is very obvious because you're seeing more coaches, like you're seeing Doug Nussmeier's name being surfaced. And that's not like from a week ago. That's like today saying that they expect that Doug Nussmeier will be the offensive coordinator. But again, that's offense. I don't see really much of any speculation or reporting as of who the defensive coordinator is going to be. Of course, Brandon Staley's name has been brought up, but it's not like we're seeing that he's expected to be named, which is what we're seeing across the board on all these positions on the offense. Kellen Moore's got a plan here, and I like this. I think this makes a ton of sense. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I can give you the merits of Scott Tolzien as a quarterback coach. He's done it for a couple of years in Dallas. One of those years, Dak Prescott pretty much missed the whole year. So, like, I'm not that's a waste of my time to sit here and try, and your time, for me to sit here and try to break down how well Scott Tolzien handles the quarterbacks. But Kellen Moore's worked with him and feels good enough about it to bring him over. TJ Paganetti, I can tell you, is a guy that everyone in Philly that is seeing this news is surprised he's moving on. That's someone that the Eagles absolutely have prioritized. That's someone they feel has been impactful with them. We all know how good the Eagles were running the football this year. Saquon Barkley nearly set a regular season record. And I can't sit here and tell you what Paganetti's impact was on that particular season. I think Saquon Barkley's a pretty damn good running back. But I know that the Eagles have valued him enough to keep him around a long time. And I know that the people that cover the Eagles are surprised that Kellen Moore was able to lure him to New Orleans. And I'll tell you this, one thing I like to look at when hires are made is what are the folks saying in the place where that person left? And in this instance, you're seeing a lot of, oh, wow, didn't see that coming. So that's, to me, a positive. That's the only thing I can really read from that. And then Joel Thomas, very, very, very much respected by the New Orleans Saints organization. When Clint Kubiak came in, he kind of wanted to do his thing. And at that point, if you're Dennis Allen, you got to let him do his thing because you're foundering on offense. And so you brought Clint Kubiak in, and he got to do his thing. But this is a guy in Joel Thomas that was spent a lot of time with the New Orleans Saints, coached Mark Ingram, coached Alvin Kamara, worked under Sean Payton, worked under Dennis Allen. And he's got a real connection to the city. I was interested. I was reading some of the tweets when Thomas was hired or reported he was going to be hired. And Luke Johnson, our buddy who we'll talk to on Thursday, said, yeah, like he comes back to Mardi Gras every single year. And I'm sure he's going to be here. And now he can come for Mardi Gras and move into his house again. So that's a guy with ties to the organization. I think that's usually a little bit more important from a college perspective to get kind of somebody on the staff that has a feel for how to recruit to the area. That's not necessarily as big a deal in New Orleans, but I do think if you've got a coach in this instance that has worked with players for a long time, and in Alvin Kamara's case he has, that just makes a lot of sense. I think it's going to be a very, very comfortable landing spot for Joel Thomas. So as I said on Monday, and as I said at the end of last week, I'm not as concerned with the offensive hires that Kellen Moore makes because that's his baby and he's going to do that his way. And his track record suggests that the Saints should be well coached on offense. Notice I didn't say uber productive. I didn't say they would be phenomenal on offense. They would be a high octane offense. I didn't say any of that. I think they'll be well coached on offense. They got work to do from a personnel perspective to be a great offense. But if Kellen Moore can't get the offense to click, then it's not going to work anyway. The question is, can you get the other side of the ball correct? And it appears to me, which is what he should be doing, he's going to take care of his room first, and then we'll go across the hall, and we'll get that figured out. And if it's Brandon Staley, and they kind of know that, he can start planting some seeds elsewhere as to who he'd like to have come in and be that guy, great. If it's somebody else, great. I'll react to that when that time comes. But if you're looking for information on how this is all shaking out, you can absolutely do that at LouisianaSports.net. Ross is doing a great job of breaking it all down. Scott Tolzien expected to come in and work with quarterbacks. You would think Doug Nussmeier probably going to be the guy to come in and be the offensive coordinator, which will not be the play caller. Kellen Moore will do that. So those two guys mainly will deal with the quarterback and the passing game. Then up front, you're looking at TJ Paganetti and maybe another assistant coach that they want to bring in. We're not sure what that role is going to look like. And then Joel Thomas going to handle running back. Still got to deal with tight ends and wide receivers. And then you can kind of turn your identity to the defensive side of the ball. And I'm very, very, very curious. Here's what I'll say. You've heard this segment, me talking about what Kellen Moore's done on the offense. It's been pretty tepid. Like, it's kind of like, okay, here's what he's got. Looks pretty good. Fine. That's kind of what I'm looking for, like, on the offense. I think that my discussion on the defensive coordinator hire and the defensive staff that is brought in will probably be more pointed because I just think it's more impactful. The Kellen Moore era, in my opinion, is not going to be defined by the offense. I think the offense will be a constant. I think it'll be good. Likely, on the on-field, from an on-field perspective, that era will be defined on how well he can continue to handle the defense, because that's where there's going to be the most variability. And, of course, that all starts with the players and the personnel that you stock the shelves with, and then you assess the results after that. Nobody's going to be able to coach a team that has a bunch of guys who are in their mid-upper 30s that are hurt all the time. So that's not worth evaluating. But once you get the proper personnel in place, and we feel like Kellen Moore will do that on the offensive side, and then we'll see what happens on defense, that's where the variability is going to come in. That's where you'll determine what this era of Saints football is going to look like. So right now, looks like a guy that has a plan. Looks like that plan's been put into place pretty quickly. Looks like it's been pretty effective. Looks like he's putting together an offensive staff with good amount of pace here. What comes on the other side of the ball and how quickly? You hope by the middle of next week, when you can go ahead and get to the combine and you can determine what you're looking for to restock the cells and reshape this roster, because that's what's got to happen for the New Orleans Saints, quick, fast, and in a hurry. This is what it is. Looking for Saints coverage? I mentioned LouisianaSports.net. You can always find our Saints coverage as well at Hunt on Saints, wherever you find your podcasts. No matter where, to search Hunt on Saints, all year round. YouTube, you can find us there as well. If you like, subscribe, rate, and review, we always very much appreciate that. Helps us get our content in front of as many people as possible, and we appreciate y'all's help with all of that. Hey, it's on. Thanks for watching Hunt on Saints. Before you leave, help us out a little bit. Hit that like button, leave your comments in the section below, and hit that subscribe button so you get all our content right here from Hunt on Saints. We'll see you next time.